Our next session is by Shanta Nathwani. Shanta lost her job in the beginning of 2020 and then the global pandemic struck. She realized that jobs were not coming. So she did the next possible or logical thing that tough people can do. She started her own company, her own agency. In this lightning talk, she will discuss the motions and emotions that she went through from never wanting to have her own company to starting up her own web development business during a pandemic. Shanta is equipped with Bachelor of Commerce in Information Technology Management and she has a black belt in karate. There's nothing Shanta cannot do. She's a full stack developer who specializes in WordPress, Node, and React with love for life and learning. Shanta, we are eager to hear your story.
Namaste, WordCamp India. Mera naam Shanta hai. It is with great pleasure that I am with you today. I am of Indian and British descent, actually, and I live in Canada. So this actually fulfills my dream of actually being able to present to a WordCamp outside of North America. I actually did attend WordCamp Mumbai in 2016, and I had such a wonderful time, and so it's my great honor to be here with you today. First of all, this is me. My name is Shanta Nathwani. My father actually grew up in Mumbai, right on Marine Drive, and he came to Canada when he was 21 years old with $200 in his pocket and a one-way ticket. He started Namara Technologies, and that's part of my story today. And I am also a former professor of web development and web design at Sheridan College. I'm also the co-organizer for our local meetup here in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, and I've given more than 40 WordCamp talks, and now I can say worldwide. So if you had asked me in high school what it was that I wanted to do with the rest of my life, the first thing I would have told you is I do not want to go and work for my father. My father had 22 years of municipal service, working in real estate and building departments. In 1989, he incorporated his first company and decided to go into business for himself. He registered his company by handing the papers over to a search company who then went and registered it basically whenever they decided to do it. It just so happens that it was registered on my birthday of 1989. So when he got the incorporation papers back, because we have firm belief in this whole birthday thing, he saw it as a good welcome coming. So it was good luck all around. When he started that company, he was 46 years old. This was taken in India in 1985 on the Orient Express in New Delhi in the Taj Palace Hotel, when we went for a 3-week tour and I got to see all parts of India. After high school, I worked in a women's clothing store and I wasn't really happy about it. And after about 6 months, my father came to me and said that he had an opening in his office. He was very clear that I was to work under his assistant and he was going to make me work for it. I knew it. After a very lengthy conversation with one of my managers, after I'd been late one day, I decided to hand in my notice. The whole time I was thinking, why am I going through this when my father has offered me an opportunity at his firm? I have a chance to grow. I have a chance to do something more than just doing women's clothing and earning a pittance. So guess what I did? I went and I worked for my father, and I was there for 6 years. And I went into real estate development and consulting. And while I was there, I did my certificate in business management, which eventually turned into my degree of a Bachelor of Commerce degree in information technology management. I also learned about project management, due diligence, contracts, He taught me a lot of this stuff on the ground. And one thing he told me about was the Old Boys Club. I may never be one of them, but at least I learned what it was, how it operated, and maybe how I could figure out how to work within it. I realized after 6 years that I didn't want to do real estate anymore. And so I had the hardest breakup of my life. And I had to tell my dad that I didn't want to do real estate anymore. Instead, he turned around to me and said, "Okay, so what do you want to do? And how do we get you there?" This photo was also taken in Mumbai at my cousin's wedding in 2016, in 2006 rather. And it was quite the week. So since I left my father's company 20 years ago, I'd gone on with my IT career and gone back to school, gaining my Bachelor of Commerce degree. And I worked as a data analyst at a hospital. I worked on 2 political campaigns, a professor, and a QA manager at a local software company. I've given more than 40 WordCamp talks, and I built a pretty good reputation for myself in the WordPress world. Fast forward to 2020. I've now been laid off from my job about a month before the pandemic started, so I had at least some financial support from the government to support me going through while I figure out my next move. I started looking for jobs, and then the pandemic hit and hiring virtually stopped. Albeit it might have been temporary, but it was enough to make me wonder, should I actually be looking at something else? I'd been involved with WordPress and its community for about 10 years, so I felt that returning after a 2-year hiatus might give me some inspiration and maybe some of my old connections. I attended virtually WordCamp San Antonio, Texas, and this was one of, if not the first, WordCamp that had been done online after the pandemic had caused so many shutdowns in parts of our world. I was listening to a bunch of people saying, "You can do this," in a number of talks. They weren't necessarily speaking directly to me, but I felt like they were. One of the ways that they dealt with things like the hallway track was offered to let sponsors host those Zoom rooms or whatever and talk to some of the big names. And so that's where I went. And yes, I'm going to name names. One of the rooms was run by Nexus, which is a Liquid Web subsidiary. And therein I spoke with people like Corey Ashton, who was which was one of the talks that had really started to motivate me in this way. Jocelyn Mozak, Nathan Ingram, Chris Lemma, and most of whom had given a talk during this WordCamp. I'd begun to change my mind. Any of those who've ever heard one of these guys know their stuff. And it was there that I started asking myself some questions. Can I really do this? And remember, I had never wanted to open my own company before. It was this time that started making me wonder whether this was the right timing. Maybe I can offer this or often offer that. And I finally decided that I was going to open my own business. So let me be clear. Throughout my entire career, I have always said I never wanted to run my own company. I didn't want to have to deal with the marketing. I didn't want to have to deal with the accounting, worry where my next paycheck was coming from. I just wanted to sit, do my work, and do my thing and not have to worry about all of that other stuff. I mention this only because there are probably many of you out there that are thinking this very same thing. I was even going to open my own dojo at one time. And I thought, what if it doesn't work out? What if I let people down? The Namara group of companies would have been 32 years old this year. And about a year ago, my father had decided that he was finally folding the company and basically moving into a retirement mode, though he will never actually do it entirely. And now I have a perfectly good domain sitting there, namara.com, and it's not doing anything. It's almost like this was coming around full circle. So I decided for his birthday, since I couldn't get to see him, that I was going to register the company and I was going to do it on his birthday. So jumping back a little in history, if you recall, his first company was opened up on my birthday. And I called up a lawyer friend of his and said, listen, I need you to incorporate this company on this day. And he said, that is such a wonderful gift. It would be my honor to do so. And so that's what I did. I opened up my very first company on his birthday and under the Namara name. So now instead of building physical real estate spaces, Namara builds digital spaces. And it wasn't until a little while afterwards that I realized that I am now the same age as my father was when he opened his company. That part was not planned, but it's amazing how all these coincidences come around. So now you have Namara Technologies Inc. So now what? I have a company name, I have a domain, I have an idea, but what do you do with it? I thought, I'm just going to focus on building it. Whatever my business is going to become, I'm going to try and start from the beginning. I'm not going to make all the mistakes that everybody else makes. Wrong. One of the first people, about a week after I was laid off, that helped me get my first client was actually the guy who laid me off. And they are still my client today. It's been a great working relationship. They've helped me work through a lot of these challenges that I've been working on, and about how not only how WordPress works, because I know how to do that, but how the business part of it works. And interestingly enough, I've ended up with at least 3 to 4 clients in my lap, all from referrals. And I know that that's not always going to be the case, but I've been very fortunate that I have that kind of a circle. Within the last couple of minutes, all I'm going to tell you now are some of those quick lessons that I learned in my journey and building this company. So first of all, you don't have to have everything done and everything before you start. I at least looked at tools and templates because it helped me find my way through, figure out what pieces I might need. You can always make them fit to your need afterwards, but I needed a starting point. There was no way that I was going to be able to build all of this from scratch and still make ends meet. Why would I do that when there were so many people who had done this before me? With that in my head, I needed to help things to keep me structured, to give me reminders, to play with my time, plan my time, and then, even if all of this stuff was overkill, it worked. I spent a lot of time looking at different tools, even the most basic things, and tried to narrow down the number of apps that I was going to need to touch. And I had things work about 80% of the way, and then I would fill in the rest of the gaps. One of the errors that I made initially was started to look for all the tools that would help me without actually understanding exactly what I was going to need to do with them. So I went a little overboard on the template and apps idea. You need an accounting software, perhaps you need a CRM, but you need to know that the underlying infrastructure of your business, for your digital infrastructure and so on. But until you know what it is that you're going to build, this is a waste of time. So avoid the shiny squirrels. Learn from my mistake here. The challenge is that I had already had a client on board that was on the go and that they wanted to start working right away. So I had to hit the ground running. It doesn't have to be perfect. I did the technical audit for a client, and then the client said, great, those are fantastic, now I want you to fix this. And when I went to the client afterwards and I said, here's the proposal, we're going to redesign your site, they said, whoa, we just went through a redesign about 1.5 years ago. We have all the content, we have all the assets and the color schemes and everything. Why would you want to redesign it? And then I realized that using the term redesign wasn't the right word that I should be using for her. A rework, for example, would probably be a better term to use, because then they're not actually having to do all of the front end part of it, that it was basically just changing the back end. So know that it doesn't have to be perfect the first time around. You will learn what your clients are going to need, who your clients are going to be, right? That may be an entirely different thing. So make sure that when you do this, you know that even if you can get 80% of the way there, that it doesn't have to be perfect, and you can always change it the next time around. You will fall, but you will get back up. The reason I threw this in here, and it's not typical of the ones that we're doing, is this is the grading for my 3rd degree weapons grading at my dojo in martial arts. The reason I'm showing you this is because this is the one I passed. Prior to this, I had actually failed my first weapons grading, and my first grading that I had ever failed in my life. But I came back and I got back up and I did it again. And the phrase that I want to give you is Jinsei Nanakarobi ya Oki. Life means falling down 7 times, getting up 8. The last thing is you don't have to do it alone. This was taken at WordCamp Rochester and in New York State, and this is the Canadian contingent. The first rule of going it on your own is that you don't have to do it alone. There are others out there that will help, that will support, give you advice, give you referrals even. Reach out to your network, find out who those people are, find your local WordPress meetup, help them. If there's a WordCamp going on, help them out. If there isn't one, start one. I give a bunch of talks. I help coordinate with my local meetup. I teach for various different places. I even help out and help organize the WordPress Canada Slack team. These various different places position me to know what it is that my clients are looking for and puts me out there as one of the people that some will come to and look for that advice. So know that it gives me that level of authority. I want to thank you for listening today, and namaste.